Let's go make a video.
This is Michael J. I just want to say thanks for signing up for my free No Money Necessary Secrets video. I'm going to show you some secrets I've learned the hard way on how to close massively profitable real estate deals, even in this bad economy, without using your cash and without having to go to the bank or use your credit. So let's get started. No money down or no money necessary doesn't necessarily mean there is no money involved with the deal. So keep that in mind. What it does mean is it doesn't require any of your funds. A good deal basically attracts the components necessary for it to happen, okay? But one of the key things you need to pay attention to as I go through a lot of these secrets are you have to match your exit strategy with how you buy the property. If you buy the property in the wrong way, you might not have an exit strategy that's going to match up, okay? So keep that in mind as we go through, and let's get started. First, let's talk about, as creative real estate investors, here's how we make money, okay? And that's the most important thing. We can do deals all day long, but the important thing is we want to do deals that are going to put cash in our pocket, okay? And or grow our net worth over time, okay? How do we make that money? Number one, wholesaling. Wholesaling is by far the best way for anybody to get started and or grow a business on its own in creative real estate investing, okay? An advancement for that would be retailing, and that's instead of wholesaling properties, now we actually do some fix up to the property, we put them back on the market and sell it for top dollar. We've got a little more risk associated there because typically we're putting some time, energy, effort dealing with contractors, dealing with fix-up issues, that type of thing. But there are bigger paydays associated. From that, we can get into owner financing strategies. And owner financing is one of my favorite ways to do deals outside of wholesaling because basically we can create a deal and we can structure financing based on however makes sense for the property, however makes sense for the seller, however makes sense for us as the buyer. Put those together and create a killer combination that meets everyone's needs and makes you a lot of money. Lease options, or let's break that apart. There's two words there, leases and options. We can combine those two techniques together, or we can use them individually to create profits from property without ownership, and that's very important. And there's a lot of money to be made on property that we don't actually own. So. And now, again, in this economy, a lot of areas are basically not worth what they used to be. And in that aspect, there's a lot of foreclosure properties and there's a lot of short sale opportunities in the marketplace. And we're going to discuss how you can use those not only with wholesaling, retailing, also with owner financing, and in some cases, lease options. So let's get started with wholesaling. This is by far my favorite way of real estate investing. Wholesaling is basically tying up a property. You put a good deal under contract, and then typically the easiest way to do it is a contract assignment where we just simply, we sell our contract or the right to buy the property to somebody else who wants to go in and actually close on the property and take that deal. So we get paid for putting the deal together, for making it happen. We get paid a fee, and that's it. We don't use our credit, we don't use our cash, we don't do anything other than find an opportunity and put it on paper, then sell that paper to a third-party investor, okay? There are several ways we can exit that property, okay? We can sell the contract, okay, which is what we commonly call as a contract assignment. We can double close the property, meaning a back-to-back closing, where we buy it from one person, sell it to the next person, basically at the same time. Two different rooms, same title company, one funds pays for the other closing. One way of dealing with some of the bank properties is we'll add a name. You know, we go to contract, then we find our buyer, we add that buyer's name to the contract, and then for a fee, we sell a quitclaim deed. So after the property's closed on, we basically, for a fee, give them a quitclaim deed, relinquishing all our rights to the property. Okay, so their funds are used to close the property. Okay, then we sell them our interest in the property. So basically they're 100% owner. We get our fee for putting the deal together. They get the property, which is what they want. Everybody wins. Or what I use, and this is, in my opinion, the only way to consistently create a business process out of wholesaling when you're dealing with banks. And banks are typically going to give you a problem because they don't want us as wholesalers flipping their property and making a buck. Okay? So they put up a lot of roadblocks. Typically there's 24-page addendums that go along when you sign a contract to purchase an REO property. Okay? Used to be we could just double close them. Way back in the day we could even assign these properties, but more recently the banks do not like contracts that are assignable. So 99% of the time they will not accept a contract that has an assignment clause in it. They typically do not like trusts. I'll talk a little bit about that, but typically I use a separate LLC to go to contract, and then I sell my LLC. So we still close to the same contract. It's just a different buyer owns that LLC, so that different buyer then has the right to purchase the property. Okay? We take a personal property transaction to fund the real estate transaction, if that makes sense. Typical profit on wholesale deals, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000. I've made, in my marketplace, I've made as much as $32,000 just by assigning a contract on a wholesale deal, okay? Just for putting the deal together, okay? Traditionally, wholesaling has been taught just by dealing with for sale by owners, okay? We're not dealing on the multiple listing service or properties that are listed with other real estate agents. We're generating leads of motivated sellers that aren't listed on the multiple listing service. And now we're dealing one-on-one with the particular seller, and we can put a deal together without competition. Once we put the deal together, it's very simple. We can just assign the contract. If you're nervous, if you're making a lot of money on a deal, you don't necessarily want whoever the investor buyer is knowing how much you want to make, then we can use the double close or one of the other techniques to kind of conceal the profit that we're making. Again, these are properties off the MLS typically. Typically, I make bigger paydays on these leads because I don't have all the competition of everyone else on the MLS able to see this property. I do have to have my own lead generation systems. Okay, that's very key. Okay, we can get started driving for dollars. We can deal probates. We can deal condemned properties. We can deal with trashed landlord properties. But we've got to have systems for generating leads to find these target properties. That's very important. No leads, no offers, no deals, no money. Okay, so generating those leads is very important. Now, when we're dealing off the multiple listing service as well, there are multiple ways we can write offers, not just here's an all-cash offer or a hard money closing offer, okay? If we're dealing on the multiple listing service, realtors, obviously number one important thing to them, they want to get paid, okay? If there's no money being brought to the deal, they're not going to see how to get paid, okay? When we're dealing off the multiple listing service, we can present our offers in a different fashion, okay? We can have the seller involved in the financing, we can do owner financing, we can do single balloon payments, we can do subordination, so we can actually get them cash out of the deal without it being our cash. We borrow, subordination basically, we borrow against the property we are buying in a first position, the seller subordinates in second position, so they get a chunk now. In fact, we can even borrow the money to give them. We can borrow fix-up cost if we actually want to do a retail deal and get the owner to take back payments. Or we can set this whole deal up and then sell our position to a third-party investor. So it gets real fun when we can get the seller involved. So again, we can do split-funded offers, subordination offers, balloon payment offers, a lot of fancy stuff that we can't do when we're dealing on the MLS by dealing with for sale by owners. And the more you can get the seller involved in the financing, the easier it is, in my opinion, to sell that deal to somebody else because now they don't have to raise all cash to purchase the property. So many, many more ideas. So if you can put a good deal together, you can find somebody else who will want to pay you for that position or pay you for that deal. Now, REO properties, okay? Unless you've had your head in the hole for the last couple of years, you understand we're right in the cusp of the biggest foreclosure boom we've seen in many, many, many years. So there are a ton of foreclosed properties all over the multiple listing service. And here we've got these stubborn banks who want to put up every obstacle possible for us to not make a wholesale fee. So here's how we do it. Okay, one, if we're dealing on the MLS, we're going to be dealing with an agent, okay, or a realtor. The realtor is going to use a state-approved contract. Okay, one, you don't need to fill this thing out. That's what the realtor is there for. You tell them how much you want to pay, when you want to close, if you need any inspection deadline, how much time you need there. So again, we're working with realtors. They're going to write up the contract. They're going to want to see a proof of funds letter, okay? On this video page, I'm going to give you a free source to create your own funding letter, okay? Just so you can use with presenting offers on bank-owned properties, or I've actually never had a for sale by owner ask for a funding letter, but if some weird situation comes up and they want a funding letter, I'll show you where you can create your own funding letter in a matter of seconds. So just look on this video page and I'll provide you the link on how to get that absolutely free. Typically, a realtor, when you submit an offer, they're going to want an earnest money check. Now, what's this video about? No money necessary, okay? Not necessarily down payments, but no money, period. How do we submit an earnest money check with our offer without having any money, okay? So let's cover that real quick. Typically, here's how I submit my offers. A lot of realtors these days simply use electronic contracts, okay? So they fill out the contract, they email it over to me, I go into my email box, I click a little link on that email, pops open a little page, it's got the whole contract there, I can review it, and then I use my little mouse to electronically sign that contract, okay? So keep in mind, I'm doing this at my computer, I'm not with the agent. I send over a copy of a check for my earnest money, and I also send over a copy of my proof of funds letter, okay? I just told you how you can get the proof of funds letter. Here's how you can handle getting the check if you don't have any money in your bank account, okay? One, in the contract, there's a line item for the earnest money. What you can do there is put earnest money delivery after acceptance of the contract. And what we use is what's commonly referred to as mutually accepted contract. Okay, MEC, in that date field on when the earnest money is due, it doesn't have to be due immediately. It can be due 24 hours, 48 hours, 36 hours after contract acceptance. So you can fax a copy of a check without having to physically deliver it, okay? And that's very important. So you've got that time frame to go out, find a buyer, collect a non-refundable certified check from them, committing them to the deal, okay, before you actually have to deliver a personal check to the listing agent or to the buyer's agent, whichever route you're going there. Okay, does that make sense? You're actually collecting the money before you put out the money. Okay, so that's a way you can completely circumvent if you literally have no money in the bank to even write an earnest money check. Okay, and I will tell you, even I do have the money to write an earnest money check, and I typically will write a bigger earnest money check, which helps me get a lot more deals. I usually, even now, I can't remember the last time I didn't have a certified check from a buyer in hand before I actually met up with the real estate agent and delivered my personal check. Okay, so I've got a certified check, guaranteed funds. As soon as I put that in my bank, I've got more than a couple of days typically before my personal check clears. I've made my profit, got it in the bank before I've had to write the earnest money check. Very important. Now, what we're going to do on the contract. I mentioned, you can sell a quitclaim deed and add the person, although, and if you're getting started, if you're nervous about, spending a couple of bucks to create an LLC, then that might be the way to go. But it's not a good business practice. Okay, why is that? It might work on half the deals out there, but if you need to amend your contract, and let's say my name's Michael Jake, I write the contract, Michael Jake wants to buy 123 Main Street from XYZ Bank, okay? They accept my contract, I put it out there to my buyer's list says, hey, I want the property, I'll take it. I've got to now get my buyer on the same contract in addition to my name. So now I have to go back to the bank and I have to get them to agree to amending the contract. Does it work? Yes, it does work. Will it work every single time? No, it won't. So in my opinion, not a good business practice. Okay. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go to, in my case, I'm in Colorado. I'm going to go to the Colorado Secretary of State's website. Okay. Go up there for $50. I can go create a shell LLC. Fill it out, create the PDF, put my credit card, $50 later, I've got my LLC. I can go to contract using that LLC. Okay? So now I've got a company I just created. If it's a HUD property, I'll need to go one step further. I'll need to actually go create a tax ID for this entity. Okay? And how do I do that? I go to irs.gov and I'm looking for a form called SS4. Okay, again, that's an electronic process. You can do that in a couple clicks on the mouse. You can get your SS4. All you need is a tax ID. Because if you're doing a HUD offer, HUD homes, they do require a tax ID when you submit the offer. And it doesn't matter what name you put on the offer, it's going to go by what the tax ID is. So if you use a Social Security number, guess what? They're going to title it in your own personal name. Okay? If you use the tax ID, it's going to tie it to that entity so you can sell that entity and still make a profit and not have to close on the deal personally. Okay? Very important. So you might want to rewind that and listen to that a couple of times just so that's clear. Okay? If it's not a HUD property, we don't even need to bother with the tax ID. We just write offers, we write offers, we write offers. When we get a bank that accepts our contract with our LLC, we're basically going to put it out to our buyers list. Once we get a buyer that says, yes, I want the property, now we're going to do a personal property transaction of selling the membership interest of our LLC. Okay? What I did, I had my attorney draft up a document because guess what? There are no membership certificates to my LLC. I just created it. Okay? My agreement covers all the aspects that you need of dealing with an entity, and it also covers basically the important factors of what I'm doing with the real estate transaction. And we use the LLC buy-sell agreement, and then we can also use a bill of sale along with that. So 2 pieces of paper, and we accomplish the same thing. Okay. Now, XYZ LLC is on the contract. Joe Schmo, the buyer, says, I want it. Joe Schmo doesn't close on the property. Joe Schmo buys XYZ LLC, and XYZ LLC still closes on that contract. So there's no changes to the contract whatsoever. So the bank has actually no way to get around there's no roadblock they can put up to keep us from executing that condition. Okay? Therefore, there's no way you can not get paid on the deal. That's important. Okay? If we're going to have a business process in our business, it's got to work every single time, and this is going to work every single time. Another way to do that, which is a little simpler because you don't need to go to your Secretary of State website, is a trust. Okay? And in some states, I know investors are getting away with using the trusts. Here in my state, having a trust as a buyer on a contract, big no-no. It's a huge red flag. If you talk to a lot of the REO agents, that is a big red flag. The lenders think it's a red flag. So it will work, but if you don't get any contracts accepted, it doesn't work for you because you're not putting any money in the bank. Okay? So use the LLC method. Once you get it, you're going to get it. Okay? But it works every single time, and that's what's important to you. We need a system to extract leads so we can find these REO properties. Because guess what? Every REO property isn't a good deal. Just because it's a bank-owned property doesn't mean that's synonymous with a good deal. So we need a way to find the good deals. So how do we do that? I typically will create a search on the MLS based on the area, based on value. If I know a certain house in a certain area is worth this number and it's listed at this number, they're already ready to get an offer from me. Okay? If the house is worth this and they're listing it right here, guess what? They're not ready for my offer. Okay? Typically, if it's been on the market just a few days and you need to write an offer over 10% different, meaning 10% lower than what they actually have it listed at, you don't have a very good shot at getting it. Okay? If you've got a property that's been on the multiple listing service, 100 days and they don't have any offers, and you need to write an offer that's going to make sense for you as a wholesaler at 15 to 20% below that, it might be worth your time to write it at that point. Okay? If it's only been on the market a couple of days, don't waste your time. Don't waste your agent's time. They're going to get frustrated. You're going to get frustrated. But if it has been on the market many, many days and you've got a bigger spread to where it makes sense, write the offer. Okay? Anytime you write an offer on those, follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up. Okay? Relentlessly. You want to track that property until the bank says yes. Because if they still have it, and let's just use a hypothetical number, if they want $100,000 for that property and you need to buy it for $80,000 and you write an $80,000 offer, they probably will not say yes right now. Doesn't mean they won't say yes later. They're probably going to drop that down to maybe $95,000 or maybe $90,000 to test the water. Okay, at that point, you got a lot better shot at getting it. Okay, so don't give up. You've already looked at the property. You've already analyzed the property. You've written an offer. All you need to do is resubmit the same offer later, change a few dates on the contract. So follow up, follow up, follow up. Those people that have follow-up systems in their business are going to do 3 times the deals that people without follow-up systems. And that might be the difference of you being a profitable business or not. Okay, so very important. Quick deal example. One of my students, Lewis, he went through my REO wholesaling training. Literally, first day he goes out, he went through a series of properties. He looked at about 8 properties. Okay, he wrote on every single one of them. There was one particular property. In fact, I even looked at this property, maybe 4 months prior, but the listing price was too high. Okay, we did write on it back then, but they didn't accept it. Okay, actually, one of my students wrote on it, and they did not get accepted. Okay, Lewis came in. At this point, they had lowered the property down to, I believe, around $69,000, and Lewis wrote a $63,000 offer. Got his contract accepted, sold his LLC, made $6,000. Okay, first day he goes out, he wrote about 8 offers, got one accepted, sold it for $6,000. Pretty cool deal. Okay, now here's the bad side with REOs. Okay, if this was a for sale by owner, we could close that deal in a couple of days. Because it's a bank, probably going to take them 2 to 4 weeks to get their act together to get to a closing table. Okay, so he had to wait actually 3 weeks before the deal closed, before he got all of his $6,000. Okay, so pretty good deal. Went out day one, didn't have to build a lead generation system. So the REOs are right there on the market right now. And he went out, found one, and made $6,000. Pretty cool. Okay. Here's some other examples. This is more or less the traditional wholesale deal. Kevin Cuccinelli, he's one of my students. He went out, found a totally trashed house, had been beat up by the tenants, smelled like cat urine, and what you'll grow to know is a good smelly house means a lot of money in your pocket. So Kevin made $5,000 on this trashed out house without lifting a finger, without using any of his own money. Sold his contract, put $5,000 in the bank. This is Ben Legg. Ben used to be a weatherman here in town, and after hearing me on a radio show, he decided he wanted to get a little passionate about real estate. So after moving back to Virginia, he followed my system on how to get buyers. Okay, he went through my buyers. He used the buyers to help him back into the types of properties he needed to look for. And these are his first 2 checks. One's about $28,000, one's I think total of just over $35,000 for his first 2 wholesale deals. Again, no money out of his pocket, no fix-up, no repairs. Nice job, Ben. Way to go. This is Kevin Cooter now, another one of my students. In this case, he used a little bit more advanced technique. Kevin actually negotiated a higher fee by being willing to wait on part of it. Okay, he might have made $13,000, $14,000, $15,000 if he took his fee up front, but in this case, he took part up front and part on the resale or refinance of the property a few months later. In that case, he actually doubled his fee. Okay, this is his first check for $11,000, and then he got another check for $11,200 once the other investor got the property resold or refinanced. So nice. Basically, for shuffling a couple of pieces of paper, finding a good deal, he put $22,000 cash in his bank account. Way to go, Kevin. And this is Tim. Tim actually used a short sale to create equity in a property. Now, after he got this short sale approved, Tim actually found out that this house had some more damage than he originally thought. In fact, it had a cracked slab through the foundation, and Tim didn't really want to fool with it. Okay, originally he was going to do a fix and flip on the property. Once he found out it had a cracked slab, he just literally sold his interest, flipped it, made a little over $5,500. Okay, just for putting the transaction together. Didn't have to do the work. So nice little deal, Tim. All right, let's get into retailing properties. Okay. If we're wholesaling, we have very little involvement. We put the deal together, we sell the deal as is for a profit. Getting into retailing, now we're actually going to do the fix-up work on this property. And when I say we're going to do the fix-up work, it means we're going to play conductor. Okay, we're not going out there with a tool belt and a hammer banging nails in a property. That's not the best use of our time. Okay, what we are going to do, put the good deals together, or maybe we even buy the deal from another wholesaler, and then we're going to evaluate the repairs by getting multiple contractor bids. Okay, we're going to negotiate with the contractors to get the best deal. Okay, we're going to fix up the junky property, and we're going to sell the best house on the block at the best price, meaning we're going to have a newly renovated house priced like the other owner-occupied houses are. And typical paydays, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. You know, in higher price markets, maybe Southern California, you could very easily double, if not triple, those same numbers on the same starter house, okay? And in this bad economy, what price point houses are we looking for? Look in your marketplace, okay? If you Google FHA price limit in your particular county, they're going to publish a number. And whatever that number is, that is the FHA funding limit. If you take that number and you multiply it by about 80%, and you stay below that 80% of the maximum FHA funding, that is a good price point for retail properties. How do we do a retail deal without it using any of our money? Because retailing, trust me, is a very cash-intensive process, okay? Typically, we may put $10, $20, $30, $40, $50, $60,000 worth of rehab into the property. Where does that money come from, okay? Now, when we're dealing with junk properties, there's a whole different world of financing out there that a lot of the world doesn't know about. We refer to it as hard money financing. It's easy money, hard terms. Okay, typically the cost of the financing is very difficult. And in any given area, hard money lenders are going to have a certain criteria that they're willing to fund. And in general, a good rule of thumb is 70% of the after repaired value of the property less repairs. Okay, and they will fund up to 100% of the purchase at that mark. Okay, a lot of hard money lenders are fix and flippers that have made a crap load of money and now they're lending it out without having to do the work, or sometimes they've raised capital from private lenders and they lend it out for the points. Okay, but they understand real estate. Okay, they can look at an ugly, nasty, smelly house that needs 20 or 30 grand and see what the finished product is worth, and that's very important. So some of these hard money lenders will lend at that number. Some hard money lenders will also lend repairs. Typically, they will escrow them. So let's say you're buying a property for $60,000. It needs $30,000 in renovation. They'll fund $60,000. They'll escrow the $30,000. As you need to pay your contractors, they'll escrow those funds out to pay the contractor. Okay? That way, all the funds are coming from you buying the deal right. Okay, what if you can't buy it quite cheap enough to have that happen? Or another source of doing the same transaction is working with private lenders. One of my first private lenders, believe it or not, was my dear old mom. Okay, mom had some money, wasn't making squat in retirement accounts. Okay, in fact, a lot of us have seen retirement accounts dwindle over the last several years. So as opposed to putting in the bank and getting pretty much no rate of return, she lent it to me. I use that money to fix and flip properties. Okay, with those funds, now mom gets maybe a little better deal than the average private lender, but with those funds, the private lender doesn't have any criteria. Okay, just because I'm paying $60,000 doesn't prevent me from borrowing $90,000 against the property. Okay, and then by me keeping my mom at 75% of the after repaired value or less, even with the repairs, I'm keeping her in a safe position as a lender, okay? And any of my other private lenders that we've developed over the years, all those lenders, in my business, in my marketplace, 75% of the after repaired value is the most we will fund, okay? So my lender always has a safety margin of 25% equity in the property. So They are very safe. They get a much higher rate of return. I get a better deal than what I'm going to pay for hard money costs, fees, points, all that stuff. I can typically move a little quicker. Saves me money, gives a private lender a better deal. Everybody wins. I can also use a joint venture partner. I can find a partner who doesn't have a deal, who has the capital, and I can use their capital to fund the deal. I do the work side of it, meaning I find the deal, I work with the contractors, we get the deal. Once we sell the deal, we split it up in some manner that we had discussed prior. Okay, 50-50, 60-40, depends on the arrangement you want to work out with someone. You can also do split funding. You can use commercial or private lenders in first position, and then you can use funding from another source to do any liquidity, any repairs, any of the capital you need to write checks until you get the property resold and pull your profit out. And a lot of people get started with credit cards. These cash advances, a lot of cards will offer you 0% or 2.99% financing, 4.9%. It's actually cheaper to use your credit card than it is to borrow from a private lender or a commercial lender, okay? So don't overlook the opportunities there. Home equity lines of credit, joint venture partners just to come in for the capital and commercial source for the funding. So there's a lot of different ways you can put these deals together. Again, no money out of pocket, okay? It's how I got started, and it's a great way for you to get started as well. Now let's get into some more fun stuff. Owner financing. And I love owner financing deals. This is one of my favorite ways to put transactions together because there's no limit on how you can structure a deal other than your own personal creativity, okay? You can create owner financing as part of the terms of your purchase when you buy. It allows you to purchase the property in a way that gives you all the time in the world you need to sell it in any way you want to sell it, okay? If you want to just straight up rent it for a period of time, if you want to do a rent to own, you want to do an installment sale, you want to create a wrap, or if you want to have owner financing just in the short term until you can fix up the property and retail it, you could always get the owner involved and always get better terms than you're going to get from about any place else. And the beauty of dealing with owners is once you have a payment of, or a track history of your payments and you pay them on time, okay, if at some point you do sell the property, guess what? Often they don't want paid off, okay? Often they want the payments. If you give them a big chunk of money after paying them off, what are they going to do with it? Are they going to put it in the bank and get no rate of return, or put it in the stock market and watch it go down? Or would they rather have roughly some type of an income stream that's going to pay them consistently over time? And if you've proven yourself, now you can get a private lender at 5% interest, 4% interest, 6%. You can get a very low rate of interest, and you're still doing them a favor over any kind of rate of return they're going to get anyplace else, okay? And it's secured by a safe, low loan-to-value property, okay? So doing an owner financing deal is a great lead-in to getting a good private lender, okay? So don't overlook that opportunity. Typically, on a front-end profit on an owner financing deal, our business model typically is I am looking for a lease-to-own or rent-to-own person for the property. I'm going to get anywhere from 2 to 10% down from that person. I'm also going to create some passive income. So I'm going to create a payment here, and then I'm going to have a higher payment I'm going to collect from my tenant buyer, okay? I'm typically going to structure nothing down from the seller, and then I'll collect a down payment from my tenant buyer. So I'm getting paid up front, I'm getting paid monthly, and then I've got a back-end equity spread, okay? Once you get your lead generation system going, okay, you might get a good owner financing deal, and you might not want to sell that, but if you do sell it, and you've got your lead generation system up and running, you can always exchange that profit into the next deal. You can always convert that that same owner carry note into what's called substitution of collateral. Okay, again, if the person wants to receive those payments, you sell this property, you just move their note over to another property and keep paying on the same note. Okay, it's a very powerful strategy. Again, payment spread, equity spread. You can create amortization spread, okay? You can also create time spread. Okay, you can put a monthly payment on the house, but give it a shorter payback period, and now your amortization pays down the property a lot quicker than it would on a 30-year note. So what if you had the same payment, but instead of paying over 30 years, it was only 20 years, okay? It pushes your rate down, okay? Also, if you pay it off in 20 years, guess what? After 20 years, the property is free and clear, okay? Guess what that does to your cash flow? It's very nice. No money strategies for owner financing. And typically, I always make multiple offers, okay? And usually my highest price offer always involves 100% owner financing, okay? Subordination, that's another way. Subordination is a great way to get cash to the seller without it coming out of your hip national bank, okay? Subordination, again, basically we borrow against the property to give cash to the seller. And then the payments that we pay them simply come from us making payments on their equity, okay? First position, we borrow the capital. We might even overborrow, okay? And then we make payments to them on their equity, okay? So they get cash down, 10%, 20% down, plus they get payments on the balance of their equity, okay? That's how subordination works. We can create a wrap. If they still owe some of the property, they might be willing to owner finances with a wrap. A wrap basically is that we've got one note in deed of trust or note in mortgage. We wrap another note in mortgage on top of that, or note in deed of trust. So the seller continues to make the payment underneath. I, as the investor, make another payment over top of that. We can do an installment sale or contract for deed, installment land contract. There's a lot of different terms, all-inclusive deed of trust. Roughly what it means is you make payments over time to the seller. Once you pay them off, then they give you the deed, okay? You have full equitable ownership in the property, so you have complete use, you get all the tax benefits. It's just you don't actually have the deed in your name, okay? It typically is escrowed until you pay off. How do you pay them off? You pay them off over time, or when you sell the property, you get a new buyer that brings in new financing. When you cash out, when you refinance, there's a lot of different ways, but the deed is there waiting for you. Another way, there's a lot of nice properties out there. In fact, there's a whole lot more pretty houses out there than there are ugly houses. So a lot of pretty houses aren't free and clear, especially in the first-time home buyer price range. If you get somebody that needs to move, if you get somebody needs to sell the property, can't make double payments on a house, subject to is a very common way you can purchase that property. You can take over the existing financing on the property, okay? You don't get a loan, you just start making payments on the existing financing, okay? And we've done several hundred transactions just like that. If they have any equity over and above what the loan balance is, you can structure carryback financing for that amount. And typically, as I present it, I tell them you'll get paid when I get paid. When I get the property resold, that's when you'll get the balance of your equity. And that, in a nutshell, that is no payments and no interest. Non-traditional down payment sources. Let's say you can do one of these purchase techniques, but they do want some money down. Where can you get the money, again, without having to come up with it for yourself? Credit cards, great source, okay? What do you got to factor if you're raising money and you have to have payments based on you bringing that capital in, okay? And credit cards, if you borrow the money from a credit card, guess what? They want a payment. How do you factor that payment? Well, if you've got a payment on the credit card, you have to take that off of the payment amount that you're willing to pay the homeowner, okay? Because this all boils down to cash flow, which means at the end of the month, you need to be collecting more in rent from the property than what you're paying out in total payments, okay? And typically, you want to structure deals so you've got at least a 25% spread in what you're collecting on the property versus what you're collecting on the property versus what you're paying out in debt, total debt service. And that includes principal, interest, taxes, insurance. You want a 25% spread over that, okay? Because that's your real break-even point, okay? If you have less than that, what are other ways you can do to increase your cash flow? Well, now we can do lease-to-own strategies where instead of getting a security deposit, now we collect a non-refundable option consideration up front of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6% of the property, sometimes even more. So now, day one, we get a year or two's worth of cash flow sitting in the bank account, which makes us liquid, which helps us have reserves in case something goes wrong, okay? Very important. Okay, if the property would rent for $1,000, I could probably get $1,100, maybe even $1,200 on a rent to own, therefore increasing my cash flow. So there's a couple of strategies there that you could do to bump, to create that spread between what you're paying out and what you're collecting. Okay, so keep that in mind. Other ways to borrow. Borrow against a retirement account. You can use a joint venture partner. You can use private lenders. If you create an owner financing note, you can sell off part of the note to give them some down payment capital, meaning sell off a series of the payments, or you can even sell off part of the whole note at a discount and cash them out completely. Lease options. Fun, fun, fun. Lease options together create control of many of the benefits of the property without full ownership. Okay? So you get benefits. You can pick and choose the benefits you want based on where you're at. You know, if you're getting started, it might be more important for you to have consistent cash flow coming into your business as opposed to a huge equity payday on the back end. Okay? Would you rather have a break-even payment with $30,000 on the back end or a very small back end and have $500 a month cash flow? Okay, it depends on where you're at in your investing. If you're just getting started, I would probably suggest the cash flow is far more important than the $30,000 back end because you don't know when you're going to get that back end profit. Okay, but every month putting an extra $500 in your pocket is definitely a nice feeling. We can lease purchase deals from the owner, and then we sublease them to what we refer to as a tenant buyer. And we create spread in the price that we buy it for versus the price we sell it for, spread in the payment that we make to the payment we collect, spread in how long our agreement is. I may have a 6-year or a 10-year deal, and I may only give my tenant buyer 2 years. Okay? So if they don't perform, I've got many other opportunities I can to put another tenant buyer in the property before I lose my rights to the property. Okay? So long-term on your side, short-term on the tenant buyer side. I can create spread in when I start making a payment to the owner versus when I collect one from my tenant buyer. And I'll give you some examples of this as well. I can create spread in rent credit, meaning I may give my tenant buyer $100 rent credit, but from the owner, I'm getting $300 or $400 in rent credit. And you can even do on repairs. I may tell the homeowner I'll take the first $300 worth of repairs on any given month, and then I might tell my homeowner they're responsible for the first $500. So I can make a little bit of spread if there are any repairs. Let's get into a lease option example, okay? And I'm going to bring up one of my students' deals because I was just discussing this with him the other day. Okay, Matt put this deal together. He had a homeowner who had a very nice house in a very nice neighborhood, but it hadn't sold. House basically needed no repairs. Just think a nice clean house. You drive by it and you're not going to notice it from any of the other ones in the neighborhood. So Matt basically made a couple of offers, and what they settled on was on a $250,000 house. Matt had structured a purchase price for $230,000. He then found a tenant buyer that he lease optioned it for $250,000. Okay, so he's got a $20,000 spread just in the price. Matt put $0 down, which definitely abides by my rules. He then collected $5,000 cash up front from the tenant buyer before they actually moved into the property. So now, $0 out of pocket, $5,000 in pocket from the tenant buyer. Matt's making a $1,050 payment to the seller, and then he's collecting a $1,500 payment from the tenant buyer. Okay, $450 per month spread. Now keep in mind, in my marketplace, a $250,000 house is above median price point. Even if I bought that from a bank, even if I had huge equity in the property, I would not be able to create that kind of payment spread or that kind of cash flow on a property in that price point if I bought it. So in this case, he's making far better cash flow by not buying it, by doing a lease option. Now Matt also structured 45 days before he had to make a payment on the house. 7 days later, he got somebody that gave him $5,000 down plus first month's rent at roughly just a little less than $1,500. So not only did he have his $5,000 down, he also had a first month's rent of about just under $1,500 cash in pocket. Now, Matt structured, I believe it was 6 years on the term. He then sublet it for up to 2 years. So he's got a 4-year spread. So he could basically put up to 2 more 2-year tenant buyers in that property, collect more cash flow, collect more non-refundable option consideration if those tenant buyers don't buy for any particular reason. Now, Matt, the way he structured his deal, the way I taught him, was he captured the amortization by showing, here's what you owe right now, here's what your equity is based on a 230 price. Okay, now every month when the seller makes a mortgage payment, part of that payment pays down the principal, okay? And let's just say it's a couple of $100 right now. That $200 pays down the price. But Matt locked in the equity to the seller. And let's just say it was $20,000. So Matt put, seller will receive $20,000 as complete payment for equity at time of purchase. Okay? So as that property pays down, the seller still gets only $20,000 at the time when Matt exercises his option. So if it's paid down $10,000, $20,000 in the time he's owned it, guess what? That goes to his profit, not the seller's profit. So he may give up $100 in rent credit, but he's getting $200, $300 or more in amortization on the loan. Okay, and that's very important. And that spread creates bigger and bigger paydays the longer he's into this deal. So really cool lease option deal. Now, leases on their own. Now, I didn't really get this concept when I got started, but I have a really good friend of mine in town here, and this is how he got started. He basically, instead of going out and doing lease options, he just went out and did sandwich leases on property. Okay, no option, but over a couple of years, he's put over 80 of these sandwich leases together, okay? So he's roughly, and I mean roughly based on our average rental here in town, they're probably about $1,000. So you figure he's taking home about $8,000 every single month, risk-free, okay? If that property goes vacant, he doesn't get his $100, okay? But he also doesn't have a vacant house that he needs to worry about. He just has to go find another tenant. You can create the passive income without the ownership burdens. That offsets a lot of your risk. You also get to try a property out before you buy it, because a lot of these sandwich lease deals evolve into owner financing deals, okay? Because once you can prove yourself to someone, okay, just by sinking your teeth into the deal with the lease, often you could build your credibility with the seller, and at some point when they want to sell, they might convert that to an owner financing deal. You get to learn how to manage property on somebody else's nickel. Guess what? Starting investors aren't necessarily you probably haven't done property management before, but guess what? You can learn that. There's a craft to that. There are ways to systematize that, just like any aspect of this business. And once you've got it, and those systems replace your time. With the lease, you can create time and you can create payment spread. You can do a performance lease, which means you only pay when you collect rent, or you can do a guaranteed lease. Okay, guaranteed lease basically says whether you've got somebody renting the property or not, you're still going to make a payment. Okay. Now, typically, we would negotiate a far lower price if we're going to guarantee it. But if we know what market rents are, and we know just in general, if we can get that 25, 35% below market rent, we're going to be able to create a lot of cash flow without having risk, even if it does go vacant. Okay. By doing leasing as opposed to straight up property management, you're offering more advantages to the homeowner. What advantages? Okay, mainly you can lower their taxes, because if they hire a professional property management, they're not actively taking a role in the management of the property, and therefore they lose the depreciation. Okay, and the depreciation is basically a paper loss that over 27 and a half years the government allows you to write off 1/27th and a half of the value of the property every single year, okay? Even though you're not writing a check, that doesn't cost you any money, you can still offset your earned income by the amount of the depreciation, up to about $25,000 per year. So if you hire management, you give up that tax break, okay? So by doing a sandwich lease, they're actively leasing it to you, and then you sublet it, okay? Effectively, it's the same result to them. They don't get anything to do with the property management. You take on that responsibility, you give them a better benefit, and you create passive income, not earned income yourself. So you're getting 15% taxation, not your earned income bracket. So there's a whole lot more advantage to you as well. And options are basically a great way to lock in a deal so you have more time. I've used options more or less almost like wholesaling. I use a purchase and sale agreement, not necessarily an option agreement, so I've got time to shop a thin deal. Whereas if I get a junker, I know I'm buying it right. I've got all the equity. I've got the profit built in there for a fix and flipper. Usually it's a field day on who's going to get there first, who's going to say yes first. Okay, if I can't provide it by the numbers, but it's a decent deal, I'll just put more time to close in my contract. And basically what I've effectively created is an option and gives me more time to shop that thin deal. Okay. And that's typically how we use options without money. There's other ways you can use options with money, but that's not really the course of this video. So, short sales. A short sale is basically when you get a lender or multiple lenders to accept less than full payoff, so it avoids the owner going through foreclosure and the bank having to deal with liquidating the asset. It's a way to create equity on over-leveraged houses. You can use short sale. You can short sale the property so you can flip it to an end user. You can short sale the property and flip it to an investor. You can do a short sale and do a fix and flip yourself, do a retail deal. You can do a short sale, fix it up and keep it as a rental with a ton of equity. You can do a short sale and wholesale it off. Okay, you can do a short sale and wholesale it into a joint venture, meaning you take a wholesale fee up front, but then you also work with a joint venture partner to stay in the property long term, either for a retail, which you'll get another profit on, or as a rental, or as a rent to own. So a lot of opportunity there. Or a little more advanced technique, you can short a second mortgage, leave the first mortgage on there, take it subject to. So we don't pay off the first, we catch it up, we take the second, we short it off of the property. So how do you do this as a no money transaction? Well, you're probably going to use credit cards to catch up the payments. Okay, assuming the first payment will allow you some cash flow from a tenant or a tenant buyer to cover debt service on the credit card and debt service on the first mortgage, or you bring in a partner or one of the other strategies we've talked about to fund the deal. So a lot of different ways to use short sales, ton of opportunity in short sale in this market. Foreclosures, not always an easy way to do with no money out of your pocket. In the pre-foreclosure market, a lot of properties are over leveraged and they're going to end up being a short sale. Occasionally you'll find one with equity. The ones with equity, you go to contract, you sell, you can double close it, you can assign your contract as a wholesale deal. If you're going at the actual auction, the sheriff's sale or the public trustee sale, depending on what state you're in, you can purchase them there, but typically you need cash. Okay, where are you going to get that cash from? You're going to get it from hard money, you're going to get it for joint venture partners or the myriad of other, the list that I've given you already. Another angle is lien holder redemptions. Or homeowner redemptions if your state still allows. In Colorado, we no longer have homeowner redemptions, but in some cases you can purchase a lien or get a contract to purchase a lien, okay, and basically redeem the property after maybe a second, a third, or any other junk comes off. You can take a subsequent lien and use its position to redeem if you actually want to purchase the house, okay. So just putting the deal together, you can wholesale the redemption rights and make a profit. So any way you can buy a position into the property, you can sell that position off to somebody who would want the property. So you can wholesale it to a joint venture, you can do a straight up joint venture, you can use private lenders to fund the deal or hard money lenders to fund the deal. So lots of different ways you can do that. Some strategy combinations, again, wholesaling properties to a joint venture. Great way to get multiple paydays, even on a quick turn property. One of my students, Linda, that was her first getting started deal. She found a wholesale deal, but instead of just wholesaling it for a fee, she wholesaled the deal, but she wholesaled it into a joint venture, and she teamed up with another investor who still worked a day job, and she coordinated all the contractors, she coordinated getting all the work done, and she got 40% of the back end deal, profit of the deal. So she got $5,000 up front, plus 40% of the retail profit on the resale of the house. So multiple paydays from the same deal. Very cool. You can assign a subject to contract. So let's say you find a property, nice house, nice neighborhood. You can take over the payments. You can assign that to another investor and then retain part of the ownership, percentage of the ownership, and or manage that property for cash flow. Okay? let's say you have, like I came from corporate America. Let's say you have people in corporate America. They have basically no write-offs. You can basically assign them the property, but then you take back all the cash flow. The cash flow they get out of the property is via the amortization they get and the depreciation, which offsets their earned income. So they actually get more money by paying less in taxes, which is powerful. And you get cash from the passive income between the payment spread and the rent spread. Okay, so you get cash you can spend in the bank. You can wholesale it to a buyer and retain an option to buy it back later. So in some cases, I've wholesaled deals, and I might be able to get $5,000 now, but I might be able to get $10,000 if I wait until the person resells the property, meaning they do the rehab and then they resell it. They might be willing to give me $10,000 later as opposed to $5,000. And in many cases, sure, I'll wait, especially if it's a retailer I've worked with many times over. Okay. Flipping it and retaining a lease option, again, great way to give a tax break to the corporate slave and still take the cash flow and a lot of the profits off the property. So doing these deals, you can structure ways to build in more front-end profit if you're getting started, or back-end profit if you've got plenty of cash flow already and you're more worried about building your equity. So great ways to do strategy combinations. So here's where it all boils down. We're going to use all these creative no-money strategies to evolve into a business with many, many, many multiple paydays, from wholesaling, from retailing, from owner finance, and from lease options. You create cash now profits from wholesaling, from retailing, and you create passive income from your owner financing and your lease option deals. You create amortization as pay down. You create the depreciation, which offsets your earned income, puts you in a lower tax bracket, so you actually keep more of the money as opposed to making Uncle Sam more money. And again, more tax breaks. Over on the side, basically, we have short sales and foreclosures as one mechanism to feed part of the funnel. And then we have our other marketing systems that generate leads to use all of these strategies. So basically, in a nutshell, get the basics first. Wholesaling, wholesaling, wholesaling. Learn how to put a deal together and get out of it quickly. Put cash in your pocket so you've always got liquidity, okay? Wholesaling, get your quick cash strategies, get them up and running, have a strong foundation of all these skills so you can move on to more advanced deals. Because as you're generating leads, you're going to get all kinds of scenarios that aren't going to fit into that one little find an ugly house, flip it to an investor. Okay, there's a lot of ways you can wholesale properties without falling into that narrow box. Okay, so understand all the other ways that you can wholesale a property off. It's very key. Wholesaling is the fastest, it's the easiest, and the most risk-free way to start cashing big checks. And these are checks. These are example checks that I've created in my business. It's $23,000. What is this one? $8,600. These are all from the same house. It's about $4,000 on one house. 18, almost 19 grand, almost $12,000. 31,000. That is a wholesale profit. 21,000. 18,700, 9,000, 4,000, 81,46. There's another 18,000 and change. There's 31,000 and change. 14,700. I mean, these are very typical wholesale checks. 17,000, 15 grand, 18 grand, 4,200, 14, 3,000, kind of all over the board, right in the profit points I said. These are actually same investor, two different checks, different numbers you can see there. Wholesaling 2 different properties on the same day, both for 5 grand. There's a 24,000, 7,500, 4,000, 5,000, 3,400. Well, actually, there's an earnest there too, so $500 more. There's 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000. Get a lot of 5,000. There's a 6,000. There's a 10,000. 19,600, 25,000, 42. I think you get the point. On and on. You can create these checks very quickly, very quickly, very quickly. Use it to build momentum in your business. Okay? So, if you want to build your own complete turnkey wholesaling system, check out the Lazy Man's Guide to Wholesaling Houses. You'll get over 9 hours of audio and video from my live seminar. You're going to get all the complete forms, every form we've talked about to put all these strategies together. advanced wholesaling strategies, how to take some of these advanced concepts and flip properties that don't fit into the traditional box, okay? I'm going to include lots of expert interviews, many bonuses. So act now, check it out before we take this offer down.